Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Software Success. I'm your host, Ashley Jones, and this is where we talk about all things dime embroidery software. And today we have a really special program that talks about all of them working together. So I'll share more about that coming up in just a bit. So we'll give a little time for everyone to join in. So tell me over there in the chat, say hi, say where you're watching from. And also tell us which dime software that you have, because today, since we're going to talk about using them together, that will help me know, which pieces that you guys are working with. And then today I'm going to show you about working with those pieces together, but I want you guys to ask a lot of questions today because you may be trying to do something specific and not be able to find it. So I think this may do really well if we answer specific questions about the pieces that you are using. So let's say hi to everyone before we get into all of those details. So thanks for being here and joining me as always. So I see we've got Laura Parks here. Thanks for being here, Laura. Good to see you as always. And so Laura comes from Lincoln, Nebraska, joining us today. And so we also have Sol Rafon from Costa Rica, San Jose. Thanks for joining us today. We do have a Spanish speaking representative in the chat. So if you have questions, ask them, and then hopefully she'll be able to respond to you as we're going along today. So thanks for being here, Francis. Good to see you from South Arkansas. And thanks for being here, Marianne, always from hot Ohio, she says. So it's definitely hot in the South, too. It's, I guess, hot all over. So Carol Gepford, thanks for being here. She says she's from Harrison, Michigan. And she says she's in the middle of the mitt. I love that. I know that that's a reference to the shape of the state of Michigan. I love that. And she says it's nice and warm there today, too. So thanks for being here, Carol. Linda Johnson from Dallas area. Thanks for joining, Linda Johnston. She's always here and a frequent visitor to our Software Success. So my friend Eileen Reichert from Maryland. Thanks for being here. Pam Halter, good to see you here as well. BJ Hit, so from Texas. Is that Kennedale, Texas? So thanks for being here. Maria Soto from Tucson, Arizona. So thanks for being here. We got people from all over. So we got Southern Oregon. Thanks for being here, Jill, my friend from Tennessee. She says it's wet there, so getting lots of storms, I assume. So Anne, thanks for being here. So she says she has Dime Pep software, and I know that Anne and I have worked on some things together before. So thanks for being here. And Reen, thanks for being here. She says it is hot in Indiana too, so I guess everybody's experiencing it. So and then Marianne, she said she has all except for My Lace Maker, so thanks for sharing that. So and Cindy, I know that you are newer to our software, and thank you for joining. So she says she's got Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch, and Special Effects, so thanks for sharing that as well. And so whenever I'm talking about these software pieces together, if you have specific questions, make sure you ask in the chat. Sometimes the chat does go really quickly, so put a few question marks before your question, and then I can pick it out of the chat as it flies by, and make sure that I get the question answered for you. So Kelly Thrasher, thanks for joining from Alabama, my home state. So good to see you as well. So from High Desert, thanks for being here, Gail. Good to see you. So we got lots of people joining. So let's go ahead and talk about what we are going to be talking about today. So as you guys know, Dime has a lot of separate pieces of software. You can own them individually, or you can own multiple pieces and they work together. So you may have one piece and that's perfectly fine, or you may have multiple ones that all work together. So today I want to talk about how to use the features of several different pieces together, because that's the power of Embroidery Tool Shed, is that as you add new purchases, then you're growing your shed. You're adding more tools to your shed. That's that whole analogy for the embroidery tool shed. Now, when we talk about Embroidery Tool Shed, we do have the free Embroidery Tool Shed. That's the the program that holds everything. So if you haven't ever purchased a program, you can still use free Embroidery Tool Shed, and it still has some awesome features. But anytime you purchase a piece of software from Dime, it installs in your tool shed, and it maximizes the capabilities and increases the power of that one program. And so we rarely talk about combining all these features together, because generally we're showing something specific. So we're using a feature from a specific software. But today I want to really try to convey to you how owning multiple pieces really does create a more powerful software. So think of it like your tool shed. Every time you purchase a new tool, the capabilities from your tool shed grow. So hopefully that analogy works for all of you guys. And so we refer to it as the tool shed, or Embroidery Tool Shed is its official name of our program. So when we say Embroidery Tool Shed, that is the free program, but it's also the program that holds all of your Dime elements. So let me go over to my software. We're going to start by showing how these integrate, and then I will answer specific questions for you guys, because if you have multiple pieces like some of you guys mentioned, I see Pamela says that she's got Cut and Stitch, My Lace Maker, the Special Effects, Word Art and Stitches, and Patch and Applique Maker. So all of those features of her software program are together in this one place. Now, let's start by just kind of giving a little bit of an overview so that you know what we're looking at. So right now, I have all of my software pieces active. Sometimes when I'm demonstrating to you guys, I have a way that I just show certain features, but today everything is turned on so that we can see how everything works together. So over here in the bottom right hand part of our software, you've got several tabs. Now, you may not have all of these tabs depending on which pieces of software that you own, but at minimum, you will definitely have the Purchases tab, which is the green shopping cart, the Sequence view, and then this book icon is your design library. So as I click on these, you can see I can flip through them. And in the shopping cart tab, I'm going to make this taller by just clicking and dragging, just so you guys can really see what we're working with. So see all of these pieces of software. I think we are up to like maybe 15, 16 different pieces. I actually haven't counted them lately, but you can see that I have a check mark next to every piece of software. And that check mark means that I have purchased it, I have entered a serial number, and the features from that program are active inside of my Embroidery Tool Shed. So that's what all these check marks for. These little option button here, this ellipsis, if you click that, you'll get the a set of options. For Embroidery Tool Shed, it just says tutorials. For most of the others, it will say make default, manual, which is the user manual specifically for this particular program, or tutorials. And when you click on the tutorials, it'll take you to our YouTube channel, and you can watch tutorials that are specific to that piece of software. Now, when you click the make default, it will change the icons that are up here on my toolbar. So I'm going to choose one that has fewer icons just so you can definitely see the difference. So right now I have my Embroidery Tool Shed as the default. Embroidery Tool Shed as the default means that I'm going to see as many icons as I can up here for all the pieces of software that I own. And it is blue because it's the one that I currently have default. So let's switch to, say, my quilt planner as the default. So I'm going to click this options, and I'm going to click default, make default. And I chose this software specifically because these two icons here are unique to this program. So do you see how this icon here looks like a corner of a quilt with a border? And this is our edge-to-edge plugin, Amelie Scott design option, but it's this icon here, this quilt icon, I want you to pay attention to. So make sure that you recognize or you remember the image right here, because I'm going to flip back and forth and I want to show you what I mean. Okay, so now my quilt planner is in blue. That means I have it set as default. So I'm going to go back and make my embroidery tool shed the default now that we've seen what that icon looks like. And if I am in my embroidery tool shed default here, which is a lot of times when I'm working and I'm not demonstrating one of our specific pieces of program, then I usually stay right here, honestly, because it has the most icons. So now over here to the far right hand side, there are some colored icons that run down the right-hand side of my screen, and it is the icon that represents the different pieces of software that I have a check mark next to. So my quilt planner, for instance, I'm actually going to slide this down now again so that it's just like it was when we started. But if I look over here, this icon here is the My Quilt Planner icon. So if I click on that icon, you can see that I get a menu with some options. Look at that very first option that says quilt, and you can see that that icon is exactly the same icon that I had on my toolbar when I had my quilt planner as the default. So if you are using pieces of software that are not your default, this is where you'll find those tools. So I can click here for my quilt option. And then for anybody that owns my quilt planner, you know that you create your quilt layout and it puts it on the screen. Now, when I go back to that icon, notice that I now have a few more options that are highlighted because I can use those. Anytime something is grayed out, whether it's on your main toolbar or in these icons over here, that means that right now you don't have anything on the screen that will work with that icon. Okay, so let's choose a design from my quilt planner. So this is my library of built-in free designs that I can choose from, and I'm just going to select one and put it on the screen. And then when I go back over here to this icon, I now have many more options to choose from. And one of the icons on the default for my quilt planner is fit to sell. That is a unique setting to my quilt planner, and I can find that right here in my icons. So hopefully that makes sense. But let's talk about a different program in case you don't own my quilt planner. Let's talk about a different program so you'll understand what I mean. So let's say that you own cut and stitch software and it's not set as your default. Right now, Embroidery Tool Shed is set as your default. If I click on this cut and stitch icon down here, I have these built-in options. So I can click on this icon, which opens up the library for my craft shapes that are specifically part of my cut and stitch software. And I can use these particular designs to create something else. So now, for instance, let's do this little bumblebee here. So this is an artwork design that is in cut and stitch, and cut and stitch does not have the convert to complex fill. You can use it from the wizard, but I don't have all of these options in cut and stitch. So if I select part of my design, you can see here in my effects panel that I have many options that I can convert that part of my design to. So I can convert it to a complex fill. I can convert that to a steel stitch, which is a decorative stitch that goes all the way around the edge. If I select that again, I can convert it to an applique, a motif stitch, a motif fill, a contour fill, a cross stitch fill, which is only in my Perfect Embroidery Pro. I can make that a satin, which is not a good idea because it's really too wide. But I can also set my rhinestone options, which are right down here. And these are specific to my cut and stitch, okay? You can see that I turn that into a rhinestone outline. So Even though under my cut and stitch here, my rhinestone option was not available, but in my tab here, in my effects tab, these are all of the stitch types that I can convert to based on every dime software that I own. So it merges all those features together in this design or this effects panel, which is right down here in my tabs below. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense on using the features together. But there's one more thing that I want to point out. So I'm going to do an undo here, just go back to my artwork. And I want to point out that create outline is an option, and the repeat option here. Those are two that I see in other programs that have an icon. But if you are in one of your programs that don't have these icons, then also look under your tools menu. So if I click on tools, do you see how I have my place, my repeat options here? So the settings, if it's something that's common amongst many programs, it might be under your tools option. So if you're working in one piece of dime software and you're looking for your feature that comes with another program, you do not have to switch between those programs. What you want to do is you're looking for that icon or that capability in another location. If you don't see the icon here, check under your tools menu. It may be under there. It also could be under your icons to the right hand side. And lastly, check your right mouse click menu. So if I right mouse click, under utility, I've got create outline. So my icon is not on my toolbar because my toolbar is kind of full. So I can't have every icon there all the time, but I have those options in my program here because they do all work together. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So now I want you guys to specifically ask me questions today about the programs that you own. If you're using features from two of them and you're having trouble finding them, say that over in the chat and let me answer those specifically, because this is really it's kind of a difficult thing to demonstrate because every one of you out there watching have different pieces of dime software. Maybe you have one, maybe you have two, maybe you have all of them. So it's different based on your kind of configuration. So if you're looking for something in specific and you can't figure out how to find it, then ask that over in the chat. So I see we already have a couple of questions. So let's answer them. So, hey, my friend from Stephanie from Caesars joining. Thank you for being here. I know she uses her software and she uses a lot of her features together. So thanks for being here. And Joanne Banco, good to see you from Let's Go Sew. You guys know Joanne Bako, and she too, I know, uses our software and combines her features to get to do exactly what she needs to do in the software. So, okay, so I see a couple of questions down below. So let's see what we've got. So Monica says, how do I get the effects tab? So the effects tab comes with the purchase of Perfect Embroidery Pro. If you do not have Perfect Embroidery Pro, then you won't have the effects tab. So that's what I mean by it's really hard to demonstrate this because everybody has different configurations depending on what they own. I love the effects panel. It's a really convenient option, but it does not mean that your other options are not there. They're just either under the icons to the right or possibly under your tools or on your icon bar. In Perfect Embroidery Pro, it dumps all the effects there in that location, which is a really nice extra feature. So, and as you guys know, Perfect Embroidery Pro is our full feature digitizing editing program. It has the most capabilities all in one program. So, and then Sandy says, what is the star for again? So the star is the effects panel. That's what we call our effects panel. It is a feature from Perfect Embroidery Pro that has that tab, and it basically puts all of my stitch types in one location. Again, I'll say this again just to repeat, because I don't think it hurts to repeat multiple times. If you don't have the effects tab, it does not mean that your features of your software are not combined together. It just means that they're not there in that tab, but they are in other locations as well. So, just something to think about. So let's see what other questions that we have here. So can you create custom sized blocks in my quilt planner in one quilt and use a t-shirt quilt? Yes, you can. So I've actually created a t-shirt quilt layout in my quilt embellisher. I've used the artwork tools to create my layout for a t-shirt quilt, and then I saved that as an image, and then that's what I use to design on top of with my quilt planner. And yes, you can do that, because once I build, I can then open up my quilt layout. So let me show you exactly what that means. So Shug881, I'll show you what that looks like over here. So thank you for asking such a specific question. So she's using programs where she's creating custom blocks, and then wanting to use that for the background. So you can either bring in an image, so file, load backdrop. Okay, so the file load backdrop option will allow you to select a backdrop image. So like I've got some images here of quilts that I've taken pictures of. And here's actually the t-shirt quilt that I designed. Okay. And then now if I want to design for Quilt Planner on top of that, I'm actually going to go over here to my backdrop. I would lighten this up. So this tab for backdrop allows me to lighten up my background so that it's visible, but it's kind of ghosted. And then if I click on my Quilt Planner and choose my quilt options, then I can set my quilt to be what I need it to be. And I'm just going to quickly color code this. I'm not going to set any specific size, but I just want you to see what it looks like. You need to make sure your size matches your quilt background. And when I say okay, you can see that it's on top of it. And let me go back into my quilt settings over here in my quilt planner. I click my quilt and I'm going to drop this down to about a 10% opacity so we can see behind it. So do you see how my grid is on top of my image? Okay. So that is one thing that you can do. I'm going to turn my backdrop off using my icon over here to the left, but I can also use blocks from, say, my quilt embellisher or my block piecer to build a layout. So I'm going to open up a new page so we don't get confused. So my quilt embellisher and my block piecer have built-in quilt blocks. So I'm going to select my quilt block library, and then I'm just going to choose something. Let's say we've got a star, and I'll just select one, and then I'm going to use my repeat tool to make a bunch of copies. Now I've just made a faux quilt. Okay, so now this is artwork backdrop. So if you want to create a custom quilt block, you can either draw these shapes, you can use built-in blocks from Quilt Embellisher or from My Block Piecer. And then when you select your quilt layout, again, I'm just going to do this quickly, the color coding, so that you can kind of see, because if I don't color code it, it's just white. It doesn't look like anything. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity and I'm going to say, okay. And now you can see that I've got my blocks. They're in the background and my designs are on top. So, but these are artwork files because I can see them all separately here in my sequence view. So maybe you want to select everything and group it together so that you don't accidentally. And you can also, in your artwork tab here, I can reduce the opacity of my blocks so that they look ghosted as well. But you can see over top of them, I've got my grid. I didn't set the size correctly because I was just showing you. So that's actually a really great question and a fantastic use of multiple pieces of Dime software, because my quilt planner does not have built-in blocks, but my block piecer and my Quilt Embellisher does have built-in blocks so you can design. And then the planner is for planning the quilting part. So that right there is a phenomenal use of multiple pieces of software. So let's see if we have other questions here. So we've got Visionary Creations. That's a cool name. Love that. How to make a rhinestone design in Cut and Stitch. Okay, so that's just using one piece of software, but I certainly would be happy to show you. So I'm going to stay in my Embroidery Tool Shed for this example, and let's use the features from the icon over in the right. So cut and stitch software has the option for rhinestone design. So you first need a shape to convert to a rhinestone design. So you can use your built-in artwork tool if you want to draw a shape. So I'll just draw a heart here. And to turn that into a rhinestone option, so click here in my effects panel, and I can just click to turn that into a rhinestone stroke. I also have the option for my rhinestone fill options as well. If you only have cut and stitch software, then your icon would be on your toolbar. So if I switch my view to cut and stitch here. And I'm sorry. And you can see that whenever I do that on my toolbar, I've got my options for rhinestones up here right on the toolbar. So this is the default view for my cut and stitch. So if I do undo and go back to just my artwork, so if you're just in cut and stitch, from your shape, you just click to convert to rhinestone stroke or rhinestone fill, and then you can change the settings over here in your properties view. So very good question there. So, okay, let's see what else we've got here. So can you show me how to the viewer design software works? I now have Designer's Gallery and I'd really like to replace it. So yes, so the viewer software, which is called our Perfect Stitch Viewer, the Perfect Stitch Viewer, you don't actually have to open up Embroidery Tool Shed. It actually works from your file library, like in Windows. So I'm going to go to a folder. So I've got all of my designs stored in my C Dime Designs folders. And then I've just got a bunch of folders that I've created here. So let's just take a look at a design folder that I have. So I'll go to my Anita Good folder. These are design files that I've purchased through the years. And if I click that folder, you can see here that you can see them as images. And notice I'm not even in the software. I'm actually in my Windows File Explorer. So you need to have your view set to either extra large, large, or medium icons. If it's set to list or detail, you can see how it just looks like these icons. But when I change it to the extra large view, I can see them as little images. Now, these are different sizes. That's why I've got multiple ones for this particular library. So the viewer, Perfect Stitch Viewer, it runs in the background and you don't even have to open up any software. You just go to your file location where you have your embroidery designs saved, and you'll be able to see them as little images. So, okay, so I have special effects. So Paula Ryan says, word art, do I still need PEP? So every piece of Dime software gives you different capabilities. So let me go back over here and let's just kind of talk about some of those. So you can see my list of programs here, and each one of them have a little bit of a description underneath. So that description kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what you can do in those programs. Now, Perfect Embroidery Pro is a digitizing program. You can create, you can edit pretty much anything you want to in that program. If that's not really what you want to do, but creating, say, lace is, then maybe adding the lace maker software would be more beneficial than PEP for you. What PEP does is it basically is our most powerful program. I can create lace manually in Perfect Embroidery Pro, meaning that I can digitize lace manually if I know how to digitize lace, but my lace maker gives me the ability to create lace with the click of a button. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. All of these individual pieces, they are kind of like our one-click wonder. So if you don't really care about how lace is digitized and you just want to create it, then my lace maker is for you. But if you want to digitize and learn to create it, you certainly can have my lace maker, but you can create manually, stitch by stitch, placing every point that your needle is going to penetrate the fabric in Perfect Embroidery Pro. So that's kind of the differences there. And the same is true for, let's say, like special effects, for instance. Our special effects program, I'm going to talk to you about in July. We were giving it time to kind of get out a little bit more, but that program has specialty stitches like fringe, a varsity fill. It has the ability to change colors in the middle of a design. All of those things you could do with PEP if you know how to digitize, but that program gives you the one click. I want it to happen, and I don't want to go through all the manual steps to create it. So that's kind of what you would think about when you think about the different programs. So even if you own Perfect Embroidery Pro, it does not mean that those other programs aren't beneficial to you, because not everybody likes to digitize, and they all give you something unique. So every one of our pieces of software, there's something in there that's not in other places. There are some overlap, like our artwork tool, or being able to color sort in some of them, or adding text in some of them. There are sometimes things that are similar, but there are always features that are specific to each program for the dime program. So hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, this is a very confusing topic, so hopefully I'm making sense and you guys are understanding what I'm saying. So Miriam Rawlings, thank you for being here. She says, from Tool Shed, how do I access the micro fonts that I purchased? So you should have in Embroidery Tool Shed, Marion, the letter T, a capital letter T, on your toolbar. And so when you click that option, that is your text. So if I click that, then I click on my workspace, and then it'll add that letter, and then I can choose those micro fonts from my list. So I'll show you exactly what I mean there. So let me go back to my Embroidery Tool Shed as my default. And so you'll see, there we go, my screen up. And so when you add a font, so what Miriam is asking, on the very bottom of your list down here, we have these font packs. So these font packs can be purchased separately to add to your Embroidery Tool Shed, but I want to caution you because you may already own them. So for instance, the applique fonts, those are the applique fonts that are in Patch and Applique Maker. So if you have Patch and Applique Maker, don't purchase those fonts because it is the same. The micro font pack, those are the fonts that are in Perfect Embroidery Pro and Word Art and Stitches. The font pack for monograms, those are in Perfect Embroidery Pro, Word Art and Stitches. Puffy is in Word Art and Stitches. The vintage fonts are in our vintage embroidery software. The luxury font collection is the only font collection that is not automatically in another dime program. So if you purchase the luxury font collection, it's an addition, and it will add to any dime program that you have. So if you don't have any fonts at all in the program that you're using, you can add some font packs, and the luxury font pack I would definitely consider because it's not in any other program. Okay. So now when you purchase a font pack, you should have this capital letter T on your toolbar. And when you click that and you click one time on your workspace, it'll put one letter. Okay. And you may have another program that you're using that it selected the font from. So to get to your micro fonts, look in your drop down list here, and you can see that I have a bunch of fonts because it's pulling from several different programs that I have. There is a capital letter F for our fonts that are our normal regular embroidery fonts. Then if I keep scrolling down, the capital letter M that's in green is my monogram fonts. The P is a puffy font. The lowercase m in kind of a gold color are your micro fonts. So scroll down to the bottom of that list, and then when you click that, you can see it changed it, and it drastically reduced the size because that is a micro font option. So still click your letter T and then select the font that you want from your drop down list. Your micro fonts should be in that list. So another really great question. So, okay. So let's see what else we've got. So we've got Felicia Goodman. Thanks for being here, Felicia. She says, what's the best way to utilize my fabric designer with all of the other software? Well, that's a really good question too. So my fabric designer has a feature to create a repeatable pattern. and you're generally working with artwork. So if you own My Fabric Designer and Cut and Stitch, you could use any of the artwork that's built into Cut and Stitch to design your own fabric. Okay. Um, those tools in My Fabric Designer, really that repeatable pattern is kind of that main thing, but you can use your creative tools that are in, Perfect Embroidery Pro. You could use the blocks that are built into My Quilt Embellisher or My Quilt or My Block Piecer to create a pattern from those built-in blocks. So really, since My Fabric Designer is all about designing a fabric print, like a repeatable pattern is the main thing, although you can create other things. Using your tools from the other program will just help you with that designing. So like, for instance, the repeat tool. So my fabric designer doesn't have the repeat tool. So creating a repeat, then you could use that tool from another program. So that's another really good example of using My Fabric Designer. And Joanne, thank you so much. She says, great show. So much information. I know, and I know that this gets extremely confusing. And so that's why I urge you to ask questions. I have never once read one question that I thought was a dumb question or a silly question. And chances are, if you have that question, then certainly other people do as well. So I think I missed this one. So Anne says, what is the best way to bring in SVG to create an embroidery design? So you can bring in an SVG from your file menu and import artwork. So to me, that's the best way to bring in a artwork file. And when we say artwork, we're referring to like a vector type file. So that would be like an SVG file, a WMF file, an AI file. So a vector file is a type of image that can be resized to whatever you want without getting pixelated along the edges. And the nice thing about using artwork files in Dime software is that you can automatically or easily just select the different area and convert it to embroidery. So, and that makes a huge difference because you don't have to trace it or vectorize it or anything like that. So that's how I would do that. So file and import artwork, a good question there. And then Sandra says too, I've just purchased my quilt planner and I'm trying to install it. It's asking me to remove my embroidery tool shed. Is that correct? So you don't have to remove your embroidery tool shed, Sandra. So I think what is happening, if we can share my screen again, and I'll kind of walk you through over here. So instead of installing something new, if you already have embroidery tool shed installed on your computer, you do not have to install other software pieces. You just activate them. So when you install embroidery tool shed, and you purchase another piece of software, you do not have to download again and reinstall. All you need to do is to go over here to your purchases tab, which is this green shopping cart. Locate the software that you just purchased, which you said you purchased My Quilt Planner. So you're going to locate My Quilt Planner. Now I can't show this because I already own it, but yours will not have a check mark next to it. You will click this options button and one of your options will say activate. And when you click that activate, it will open up a page. It'll ask you for your information and it will then have a location for your serial number of that program that you purchased. And then you'll just register it. And once you do, it'll give you a message that says you'll need to restart. And then once you restart and open it up, you'll look in your purchases tab and you'll see that you have a check mark next to it. You'll also have the icon for it over here on the right hand side, which means that you've got it activated. So hopefully that helps Sandra on do that. But yeah, you don't have to reinstall, just activate. That's all you need to do. So if you guys have other questions, or if I missed a question, ask it again down toward the bottom. I don't want to miss your question, and I definitely like to get it answered. And so I'll show you one more thing for using multiple pieces together to give you guys time to maybe ask a few more questions. So I'm going to go over here to my screen and then I'm just going to do a new workspace again. And let's talk about like My Lace Maker, for instance, which since I used that earlier. So My Lace Maker is the program that gives me the ability to create with the click of a button lace designs by using the built-in designs or either using this lace grid to hold everything together. So I've got my embroidery tool shed as my default. And if I want to use a frame, so this is actually another really good use of multiple pieces together. So let's say I want to use a cut and stitch artwork shape and I want to turn it into lace. Okay, so I clicked on my cut and stitch over here to the right. And Cut and Stitch has built-in artwork designs where most of our others have built-in embroidery designs with some artwork frames. But let's say we want this dove. That would be beautiful lace, wouldn't it? So I'm going to choose this dove. This is from my Cut and Stitch software. And I now want to turn it into lace. Okay, so if I have Perfect Embroidery Pro, I could use my lace option, which I think is here. If it's not, we'll find out here in just a minute. If I hover over this, you can see that it tells me what type of stitching that I'm going to get. And so I'm just looking for grid. That's the lace grid right there. So I click it and it turns that into my lace grid option, which I can change to double or triple, which is a My Lace Maker feature. Okay, so I'm going to undo this. Undo, back to my artwork. If you do not have Perfect Embroidery Pro, you will not have this star. So then what do? You're going to click your icon for My Lace Maker, and you can see that I have my lace grid option right here. So I click my grid. Now this automatically went to my double grid, which is the setting here that we use most for freestanding lace. And now that I have that set, if I click on My Lace Maker, and I'm going to select everything here. And you can see that I have the option for my lace border and the create hole, but they are grayed out because I don't have anything on the screen that will work. So create hole needs an artwork. So I'm still in my embroidery tool shed. I'm going to use my artwork tool here to create a little eye for my dove. And then when I select everything, you'll see, hopefully, see my create hole is now available. So I create hole and it cuts out the hole for the eye in my lace grid. Okay, so that's how you use the features together. So I used an artwork from Cut and Stitch, but I used my lace feature from My Lace Maker. So, and I wasn't even in either of those software. I'm still, if I flip over here to my purchases tab, I am still in the Embroidery Tool Shed as my default program. So isn't that cool? We rarely get to show this, but I absolutely love it because it really does show the power of the Embroidery Tool Shed bringing all of these elements together. So, so really good question. So, and then Joanne said she's making commemorative patches for a retreat held last weekend. Hope retreat went well, Joanne, and she's sending them out as thank yous. That's such a cute idea. So I love that. So very good idea. And then Janie Bourne says, is PEP mainly for digitizing your own embroidery designs? Does it include any of the modules in the tool shed? No. The Perfect Embroidery Pro, yes, I would say its main thing is about digitizing, but it does have some features that are not in our other programs, like that effects panel that puts everything together. There's a name drop feature, which you can choose one design, and then it will save a bunch of different names for you without having to create 8 designs. You can just do the name to the design. So there are some things in Perfect Embroidery Pro that are unique to Perfect Embroidery Pro that are not specifically about digitizing. So, but there are commonalities, but if you buy Perfect Embroidery Pro, you don't automatically get the other pieces of our software. So just so you understand that. So hopefully that makes sense. So, and she said, Ashley is the most patient person on earth. Well, thank you, Laurie. I appreciate you saying that. She said, I have asked questionable questions before, but she's answered them anyway. I really don't think that any question really is questionable, but I know that we feel that way because we feel like sometimes we should automatically know, but you shouldn't. I've been using this software for a lot of years. I've also started when we only had 3 pieces. So I have been able to learn them as we got new ones. Some of you guys are getting a bunch of them at once, so you're learning like a lot of things at one time. So it's understandable that you don't know where all of that is. So Linda Johnson says, please don't ask us what is our favorite dime software. I love them all. My brain explodes when I try to choose just one. I definitely agree with you in that sense. I do love every piece of software. It gives us like tons of capabilities for sure. So, and then Elizabeth Dickerson says, Ashley, you may have covered this, and I tuned in late. Can you use fonts purchased from other companies? If yes, what format does it need to be? I actually, Elizabeth, I didn't talk about that, but that is a good question. And we get that question often. And the answer is yes. When you purchase fonts from another digitizer, then they usually give you fonts that are saved in your embroidery machine format. So PES, EXP, JEF, VP3, and all of those, we can read and write to all of those embroidery machine formats that you're going to get fonts in. So I would say 99% sure that every font you would purchase, we could read it in if it's an embroidery machine format. There are some fonts out there that you purchase that are called BX fonts. Those are specific to Embrilliance software. When you purchase a BX font, it would install into their software. For our program, any dime software will read those font files because they're embroidery machine formats, and you can bring multiple files on the screen if you're trying to spell a word. So you would bring in the like the H and the I to spell high. And then you would just do file and open or file merge, and you can drag them onto the screen. I'll show you that example too over here. So let's take a look at that on dragging those in from your library. So to me, the easiest way to do this, any dime software that you have, let me hide the comment. I like to leave the comment up there so we all know what we're talking about. But over here in the bottom right, our book icon, that's our design library. I do have some embroidery font files that I purchased years ago before I owned Perfect Embroidery Pro. And so let me go to one of them. So you can see here they're different sizes. And this one is a monogram font. And you can see how it's DST. And it has the, this is the center letter of the monogram. Let me find one that's not a monogram. And so we can bring up, that one is too. Apparently I loved monogram fonts. So let's try this one. Also a monogram font. Oh my goodness. Let me see. This one's last one I'm trying. We're going with it, even if it's not. Okay, that one will work. Now, these are really large letters. So 6 inches is probably why I purchased them, because to digitize letters that large, you really can't resize in software and have a full set. And so if I wanted to spell a word, I would click and drag that letter. Then I'm going to click and drag the next letter. I'm going to do just ABC. Okay. And then the lowercase c, just like that. Okay. Now, if you have one of Dime's program that has the distribute options, not all of them do. I usually just space mine out like this. I select everything on the screen, and then I can use my vertical center align, and then I can use evenly distribute, and it'll automatically space them out for me. So if you're bringing in these letters one at a time, then that's an easy way to do it. And that was a little bit too much space for me, so I would move them over. And once I kind of get them kind of where I want them, I can select everything and just say, you know, evenly distribute again to make sure they're even. But notice this letter has this descender here. So I would want to align everything bottom if you want like that. Or if you do middle, you'll get that descender. And so it's really just up to you, but it's taking this file and centering it on this file. So it's, you know, you can see that the letter there that it's centering on, I would probably want it to look more like this. So maybe you would put both of these bottom, and then you could leave that one, you know, where it was as the middle. But there's all kinds of alignment tools. Every Dime program, except for the free one, has the alignment tools built in. The distribute is not in every program, so just look for your icons. But that's how you can bring in fonts. And you can also map these fonts to a keyboard stroke, but that would be using Word Art and Stitches, and Perfect Embroidery Pro has a font editor that will map those so that you can type on your keyboard, and it would pull in the file for you. So just another little tidbit there. And so let's see if we have other questions here. So Christy Kale says, I have word art and cut and stitch. And can I add rhinestones to the text in word art and stitches? So if you have cut and stitch and the word art and stitches, you can use those features together. And so what you mostly are going to do for the letters that are in word art and stitches, since they are already digitized, then you really want to use like an artwork outline or something. You can't just take a stitch file letter and turn it into rhinestones. You could use the two features together as far as your text, maybe create an outline, add some rhinestones, or in your cut and stitch, you can manually place rhinestones or do an artwork line. You could trace them and do that. But certainly there's ways to get the look that you want with those two programs. So that's a really good question, Christy, too. So I like that. And then Anne says the triple option. When would you use the triple option for the lace maker? So I used the triple grid option when I did a freestanding napkin ring. I just made a rectangle and then I made a loop on one end and then a little shape on the other end to connect the in a little circle so that it would hook together. And I used the triple and I tightened it up because I really wanted my my napkin ring to be almost solid. So that's really a design element. I also know that our tech guru and software manager, Roy Garland, has created some lace maker designs. And I know he used different grids too for shading, changing the angles, changing how many, whether it's a triple or a single or a double, really add some depth and dimension whenever he turned a person into lace, or like Santa Claus into lace. So that's another reason I would use the triple there too. So, and then Mary Larson says, am I in need of one more on this topic to access features from our program from my tool shed? So I see that I need more. Yes. And Mary, you know how to get to me specifically. If you are over there on our Facebook user group, ask questions. I'm happy to help. And with anything that I can. So, and then Tequila Hot says, can classes in greater than 30-minute increments be purchased? So you still would purchase them in 30-minute increments, Tequila, but if you message the educator that's going to be teaching your lesson, if she doesn't have something in between your lessons, a lot of times she will accommodate you and put them back to back, so that if you purchase 3 lessons, you guys would go for an hour and a half, or 2 for an hour. That's a really good question. So reach out to your instructor that you purchase the classes with and ask them if they can be merged together, and she can look at that and adjust. So another really good question. So, okay. So, and then my friend Eileen says, which programs are artwork designs besides cut and stitch? So a lot of our programs have what we call frames, which is an artwork shape. So Patch and Applique Maker have some of them. Perfect Embroidery Pro has some. The bubble text in Word Art and Stitches are artwork. So a lot of them have pieces, but our largest artwork library is in cut and stitch, Eileen. So hopefully that helps you too. So, and then Felicia says she loves the name drop feature. Yes, that's a really good one. That's in specific to Perfect Embroidery Pro, and I maybe Word Art and Stitches. Don't quote me on that. So, and then Paula Ryan says, is there a chart summarizing all the features of the program, and which features and eliminate overlap, things like that? So Paula, I am actually in the process of working on that. It's a massive list and it just takes a lot of time. So I'm working with another one of our educators that help with that. And then also our software developer manager, Roy, to get that all correct. So hopefully we'll have that, because as we add more pieces, it's hard for me to even keep up with what is what for sure. So, so that's a really good question as well. So, and then, oh, thank you. That's such a nice comment. So Laurie said she thinks it's superior to the Viking software, and it doesn't break the bank. So I think that's really nice. I do think that all brands of software, have lots of capabilities. They're like cars. Some of them have features that others don't. So you're really just, finding what works for you, I think. So, and then Connie Rule says, I've downloaded the free designs, but I can't find them in my computer or even in the tool shed. What happens to them? So when you download a design, then pay attention to where your computer puts your download. So if it doesn't give you an option, most often it goes to a download folder. So if you look in your file explorer, it might be a download. If it's a dime design that has an installer, that installer, which by installer, I mean it automatically puts the designs where we think are best that they go. That installer, when you run that almost every design that does that is going to go in your C folder, dime and design. So go to your C drive on your computer, go to dime and designs and look there, and you'll possibly see them. But even in that installer, it gives you the ability to change the location. So take a look at that before you click install. Read the things on the screen and it'll actually tell you the location that it's going, and you could change it if you didn't like where it's going. So that's another really good question. And then Tequila says, can ETS be downloaded on multiple computers, desktop and laptop, to work on the go? Absolutely. So Embroidery Tool Shed, the free version, you could install that on as many computers as you want. Any purchased program for dime, you can install on 2 different computers. You get 2 activations on that one serial number. So if you have like My Quilt Planner, you could install Embroidery Tool Shed and you can activate My Quilt Planner on the desktop and the laptop. So absolutely. If you get an error message that says you're out of activations and you haven't installed that second one, contact our tech support and let them know you want to install your second activation is the way you want to do that. If you do have 2 activations and you want to move one to a different computer, you can unregister and it'll free up one of your activations for you to move to another computer as well. So another really good question. So lots of good questions coming in. So Susie DeSoto, how often does the software go on sale? Some of the modules are pretty pricey. So absolutely. So we have our price, on our site. But Susie, I always recommend go to your local dealer that sells dime software. That is my first and foremost, because they themselves may have a special price. And most often they have a better price than we do on our site, because we have, we like to support our dealers. So check with them. And then from time to time, we'll have specials. It's not any rhyme or reason. It's just, we'll run specials at different times. So just make sure you check with us often and see what we're up to. And so that is I think the best way to get the best price. So is there a display? Thisby Chris Embroidery says, is there a way to display the tools from all the dime software instead of the flyout menus? At this time, no. Your toolbar, that's why I leave Embroidery Tool Shed as my default, because it gives me the most icons on my toolbar. But to see the ones that are from the other programs, those are going to be those flyout menus. So, but that's actually a very good question. And maybe you never know, you'll get, if we make changes, maybe that's something that you can request, and maybe we'll see something in the future. So. And then Mary Larson says, we have the icon to change designs to artwork. And so, maybe you're answering someone else's question, Mary. If that was meant for me, then ask again. I'll make sure to do it. So, and then Linda Johnson says, what's the name drop feature? So I'll share my screen again here, and then I'll show you what that is. So the name drop feature is if you want to add a bunch of names to the same design. A lot of times you see this in like sports where you're making like team shirts. I'm just going to use this ETS butterfly here. And then this is my name drop icon. You may also have it under your tools options, name drop, if you own Perfect Embroidery Pro. And so that's where the name drop feature comes from. So if I select this, it wants me to add text first. So it gave me that message. And so I'm going to add my text here, and I'm just going to put my name and then choose a different font. So I'm going to go up and just choose a regular Arial font or something of that nature. So there we go. And you would resize this font, to whatever you want it to be, place it where you want. And then when you click the name drop option, hold on, let me select everything just to make sure. So I haven't used this in a while, so I just want to make sure that we've got all the range. There we go. Okay, so these settings here will change where your text is. So you can change the different styles. You can add a decor, design a line. You can see that I've got it on left. If I want it to be, center. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. So let's go back, center there. And, or if I want it top, bottom, wherever you want it, but you can put a list of names here. So like I can put, Ashley, if I spell it correctly. And then I can put Laura. I can put Alex. I can put Joe. You just keep going as many as you need. I'm going to remove this one because I don't want another line. And so it will create this file. So I'm going to do preview here, and you can see that it has, I put my design on the bottom when I want my design on the top, and let's do preview again. So then as I go through this, I can preview what each name is going to look like. And when I click close or create, I want to do create, sorry. When I click create, it will save 4 files. Each of them will have this butterfly, but it'll have that name under a different program. So this is name drop, and it's usually when you're using the same design and you're just changing the design. A lot of times sports teams will do that. So, or if you're doing designs for sports teams. So, and then you can change, these settings or whatever, but when you click create, it puts it all on the screen. But if you did the save, then it would save all of them separate. I didn't mean to do create. I meant to do save. So, but you can see how they're all separate. And in this feature, you want the save option, not the create. Create just dumped them on the screen. So I haven't, as you can tell, I haven't used this in a long time. And so I usually brush up before I use it. But it's a really cool feature. And when you click that save for all of these, then it is one save and you get 4 different files to stitch on your machine. So it's really a nice time saver. So really good question on that. So, and then where is it located in Pet More Art Stitches? So look under your tools menu. So tools, and you'll see name drop for that feature. So really good questions. So I love that you guys have such great questions. So, okay. So let's answer a few more. So will this video be available for later? Absolutely. On our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. You can rewatch this as many times as you like. So absolutely. And then what if I can't remember what if I can't remember number? What number? What did I do if you can't remember the number? So I don't, maybe clarify a little bit on that, Brenda. So maybe it was related to something else we were talking about. So what if the name of these software informational sessions on YouTube to watch? So it's under software success. So you'll see that little logo in the top left corner there. We call these our software success because we want you to be successful with your software programs. So look on YouTube under designs and machine embroidery and software success. So great questions. And then Carol Tripp says, where are the quilt designs? I'm assuming she means created in my quilt and planner saved. I made a folder and put them in, but I can't save them. So if the file is in one of your libraries, those are built-in files that are under hidden folders under your computer. They're hidden so we don't accidentally mess them up. If you're creating your own files, what I would recommend you doing is putting them in your C Dime Designs folder, and then you can access them from the bottom right in the little library area that we've been using. Because the built-in files, they're hidden and protected so we don't accidentally mess those up. So save them under your C Dime Designs folder and access them from the library in the bottom right-hand side. So very cool feature on the, yes, I've done that for a basketball team. So Francie says, so yes, exactly. So, okay. And then Laura, last question here. So she said something, God forbid something should happen to an owner of a software. Can a loved one receive ownership of the software? So our rule is that the software is to the purchased, the person that made the purchase. It does not transfer to a new owner. It's registered to you and for you to use. but very good question, Laura, on that. So, and then Brenda says, if I buy another computer, do I have to remember the activation number? Oh my gosh, good question, Brenda. Thank you for clarifying that. That is an excellent question. You do not have to remember the activation numbers. When you register, you're in our system, and so we can access your number. But also when you register, you can look under your help menu and under activations, and I think it's help and activation. So help and activations. And then when you select from the drop down list, it'll show what your activation number is, so you can record it and keep it in a safe place if you want. But we also do have that information. So thank you so much for clarifying. So, okay, guys, I'm going to stop right there. And I do plan to do this again in 2 weeks. So you guys know Software Success is the first and the third Tuesday of every month. So we will be talking about this same topic in 2 weeks from now. So on June 18th, join me back here on either our YouTube channel or Facebook to learn more about integrating these tools. And what I'll do for you coming up, I'm going to use some features and create some different designs. So we'll see more about creating designs from multiple pieces of software. So I'll do more specific, and I'll create some designs so that you can see those merge. But I really wanted to hear your questions so that we really had an understanding of what's going on. So join me back June 18th at 1 p.m. Central for Software Success. And if you are interested in any of the programs that you don't already own, first and foremost, check with your dealer, your Dime Inspiration software dealer. Go to your local dealer and ask them if they have the program that you're interested in. If you don't have a local dealer, you can check out our page, dzgns.com, certainly, but I definitely would prefer that you support your local dealer. So we wouldn't be here if it weren't for all of those wonderful shops. So, okay, so hopefully I answered all of your questions. If you need any further information, find me over on our YouTube or our Facebook group called Dime Inspiration Software Users. Our education team answers questions over there. You can find me over there if you have specific questions about anything that we've learned or anything software related. So Dime Inspiration Software Users is the name of the group. Head over there and join. And until we have another Software Success together, I'll say bye for now, and thank you all for being here.